Hello, it's me, Karen Ashley. I played Aisha, the Yellow Power Ranger, and you're watching Power Rangers, a comic book history on Joe's Geek Show. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Do that immediately. And with that, it's Morphin time. Saber-tooth, Tiger Grip, and Thunder Zord power. You know how we do.
If you grew up in the early 90s, you undoubtedly experienced the phenomenon that is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Based on the Japanese tokusatsu series Kyoto Sentai Zyuranger, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is about a group of teenagers tasked by an interdimensional being known as Zordon to protect the world from the evil space witch Rita Repulsa. Zordon endows these teens with the power of dinosaurs, which they use to transform into colorful costumes, allowing them to use fancy weapons and, in times of need, call upon giant robotic dinosaurs known as Zords, which could be combined into a larger machination simply called the Megazord. And on August 28, 1993, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers hit the airwaves and became a smash hit, forever changing the landscape of children's programming and cementing itself within pop culture. And with every hit TV show comes merchandise. T-shirts, posters, toys, and, of course, comic books, which will be the focus of today's video. So please join me in this look into the more phenomenal world as we go through Power Rangers, a comic book history. Spring 1994 saw the first Power Rangers comic, which was a promo mini-comic packaged with the Fruit of the Loom underwear published under Hamilton Comics, a comic that is now rather rare. And just a few short months later, in November 1994, Hamilton Comics would see the release of issue number 1, which officially kicked off the series. And although there was no book in December of that year, the series promptly picked back up on January 5th and ran consecutively until May 1995, which officially ended the first volume, culminating in a total of 6 issues in the main series, and 7 when combined with the Fruit of the Loom one-shot. The kids, however, wouldn't have to wait long, as in June of the same year, Hamilton Comics would release a new issue number 1, kicking off the second volume of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic. This second series consisted of 4 issues, with the last ending in September of 1995. Also to note that in conjunction with Volume 2, another series was being released alongside it, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Saga, which was a retelling of some of the events from the TV series, but ran them from the perspective of Zordon and Alpha 5. This series consisted of 3 issues, and, like the second volume, also ended in September of 1995. This final issue would also mark the end for Hamilton Comics, with a combined total of 14 issues between the first and second volume, as well as the Fruit of the Loom one-shot. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers title would then find its next home, with the upcoming publisher being a known juggernaut in the comics industry. Within the same month of Hamilton Comics finishing its run, Marvel Comics was just getting started, coming out with 2 comics in September 1995, with the first being a photo adaptation of the then upcoming Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, and the other being called just Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which would be centered around the 3rd season of the show, using the Ninja Zords. In November of this same year, the series would be accompanied by another title called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Ninja Rangers, which also happened to be a reversible comic book, as on one side you had the Power Rangers, and if you flipped it over, you got a comic book associated with the show VR Troopers. Also within November, Marvel had released a drawn comic adaptation of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. And at the end of Marvel's run would consist of 14 books in total, with 7 for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, 5 for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Ninja Rangers, and 2 different adaptations of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. Marvel would then release one final book in April 1996 featuring the Power Rangers within the pages of Masked Rider issue number 1, which was another Saban hopeful. And with that, Marvel's time on the book would end. We then come to September 1996, when Image Comics would assume control of the Power Rangers brand and began producing an adaptation of the, at the time current, Power Rangers Zeo. And this book was an interesting anomaly because despite reports of 4 issues being drawn, only 1 ever saw print, and it's unclear as to why, and I was unfortunately unable to find anything to verify the existence of these other 3 issues or why Image had lost the license. But regardless, it was an interesting time in the history of Power Rangers comics. Which now brings us to 1997, with the Power Rangers brand shifting to Acclaim Comics, which they used to produce the Saban Powerhouse magazine, and would end up being mini-books based on Power Rangers Turbo. There would be 3 books in total, with 2 being solo adventures, and 1 seeing a crossover with Beetleborg's Metallics. The first was published in August of 1997, with the other 2 being published in the same month of October. This would be the last time Power Rangers would see the printed page for quite a while. And after 6 years of being out of print, the Power Rangers would once again see a resurgence in the print media after Haim Saban sold the popular brand to Disney. And then it was that in August 2003, the first book through Tokyo Pop would be released based on Power Rangers Ninja Storm. There will be a collected total of 3 issues, with 1 more book for Power Rangers Dino Thunder released in November 2004, before officially losing the license. And it's also worth noting that during Tokyo Pop's run, there was also a small comic strip of Power Rangers Ninja Storm being released in the Disney Adventures magazine. Which then brings us to Jetix Magazine, where from 2004 to 2009, anything related to Power Rangers in comic form would be relegated to the magazine format, with one exception being the Bandai comic based on Power Rangers Jungle Fury that was bundled with certain figures in the Power Rangers Jungle Fury toy line in 2008. And over these next 5 years, we would see comic strip stories from Power Rangers Ninja Storm, Power Rangers Dino Thunder, Power Rangers SPD, Power Rangers Mystic Force, Power Rangers Operation Overdrive, and to note that around this time, there was also the official Power Rangers magazine in the UK, and upon from what I could find, seemed to consist of the same collection of short comic strips, with the magazine running 1 extra year. And so it was that after 2009, when the magazines wrapped up, there would be nothing for the next 3 years, until 2012 when Panini stepped in and produced a revival of the Power Rangers magazine in the UK. These stories would also be short comic strips that told stories from the worlds of Power Rangers Samurai, Power Rangers Super Samurai, Power Rangers Megaforce, and Power Rangers Super Megaforce. Panini would then stop printing Power Rangers stories in 2015. However, during this time frame, there would also once again be a resurgence of Power Rangers in standardized comics. With 2012 bringing the Panini comic strips back, this also began the run of Papercutz comics, which started in November 2012 with a graphic novel of Power Rangers Super Samurai running for 2 volumes before heading into Power Rangers Megaforce for another 2 volumes, culminating in a 4-volume collection, with the last one coming out in December 2013. It would then be 5 months of waiting until May 3rd, 2014, which celebrated Free Comic Book Day, where Papercutz released a one-shot comic featuring the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And unfortunately, the book was underwhelming to say the least, and in part, rather distasteful on several levels. With the inner part of the book detailing the legendary duo Bulk and Skull as Bulk and Spike, with Spike being Skull's son and a character in Power Rangers Samurai and Super Samurai. The character Jason, when calling the Zords, says dinosaur power, not Thunder Sword power, as this was during the 2nd season when the Thunder Zords were prevalent. These mistakes also carried into the formation of the Thunder Megazord, also calling it the Dino Megazord, and even one other mistake with coloring the Pink Ranger Zord the wrong color. There would also be a controversial moment when Trini, the Yellow Ranger, would be hit by the rad bug turned monster, which seemed like a tone-deaf story point as the actress who played Trini, Tui Trang, sadly passed away in a car accident in 2001, which prompted Papercutz to redo the digital release, replacing Trini with Kimberly, and instead of getting hit, narrowly missing her. Papercutz would then release 2 more books in the graphic novel format, with November 26, 2014 being the final book titled Go Green. The company would then lose the rights to the Power Rangers comics. Enter 2016, and the up-and-coming publisher, Boom Studios, managed to not only acquire the rights to the Power Rangers brand, but also maintain it to this day, with it all starting with the launch of a new series simply titled Mighty Morphin Power Rangers under the direction of Kyle Higgins, with January 2016 seeing the issue number 0 hit the stands. And with it, this also brought a fresh new perspective and interpretation, as this series would be telling stories within the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers universe, even filling in gaps or reinterpreting story points and plot threads for future stories. Also, an interesting and notable difference is that the stories have been updated to modern times, with characters having cell phones, Bulk and Skull having a YouTube channel, and so on. This book proved popular enough that in June 2016, Kimberly the Pink Ranger got her own spin-off titled Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Pink. This spin-off ran until January 2017, collecting a total of 6 issues. And with 2 successful series, this new method would prove popular among the Power Rangers crowd and even beginning to get the attention of non-Power Rangers fans. And so in 2017, 3 projects took shape. The first was a graphic novel continuation of the 2017 Lionsgate film titled Power Rangers Aftershock, as well as Boom Studios and DC Comics getting together in January 2017, where they began a crossover event releasing a 6-issue miniseries called Justice League Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Boom Studios also saw fit to launch a secondary ongoing series in July 2017 called Go-Go Power Rangers under the direction of Ryan Parrott, who had also written for the Power Rangers Aftershock book. This new series would at first feature the Rangers and their personal lives and contain 3 major story arcs, one with the Rangers prior to Tommy, one after Tommy lost his powers, and a third with Tommy gaining the power of the White Light to become the White Ranger. The Go-Go Power Rangers title would run for 3 years before concluding June 10, 2020, ending the series with a total of 32 main issues and 2 annuals. Also, during the run of these 2 books, there would be 2 major events, with the first proving to be the largest scale Power Ranger story ever told. Shattered Grid told the story of Lord Draken, an alternate version of Tommy who sided with evil after having Rita's spell broken. This alternate Tommy began moving through the Power Rangers multiverse, collecting various morphers in order to access the Morphin Grid. This event was also a celebration of the 25th anniversary of Power Rangers and ran from February 2018 to August 2018, collecting a total of 15 issues. This led the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers book in September to shift focus from the original team to a storyline called Beyond the Grid, which followed Grace Sterling, a former Red Ranger from 1969, and a mixed team of Rangers from different time periods who were displaced out of their dimensions, ending up in a different universe. This story would run until June 2019, which the MMPR title would then refocus back on the core Mighty Morphin Power Rangers team, beginning the Necessary Evil storyline. This time around, the book focused on the Rangers during the second season, introducing 3 new Rangers, Rocky, Adam, and Aisha, replacing Jason, Trini, and Zach respectively. The story would also explain that the peace conference in Switzerland was actually a secret mission that led the former Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to becoming the Omega Rangers in order to combat a growing threat, as time and reality were left weakened due to the Shatter Grid. The Go-Go Power Rangers title at this time would also be used to set up these events. During the 2018 and 2019 year, 2 graphic novels independent of the Shattered Grid event would also be released, with December 2018 bringing us Soul of the Dragon, a sort of Old Man Tommy story which would wrap up his time as a Ranger, and October 2019 releasing The Psychopath, a Power Rangers in Space story featuring Andros and Karan as they battle the revived Psycho Rangers. 2020 would also feature another crossover event where we see the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers team up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This story would collect 5 issues, seeing the 2 teams learn from each other, and also the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles taking on the Power Ranger roles. Boom Studios would also go on to release collected versions of the previous stories from Hamilton through Papercutz Comics in 2 collected volumes titled Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Archives, making past stories now accessible to modern audiences. And so, the Power Rangers have had a long history of highs and lows in the comic book space. What does the future hold for Power Rangers? What other stories and crossovers will we see next? Only time will tell. For now, may the power protect you. And I would also like to take this moment to give my biggest thanks for your viewership. And if you like this video, to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as turning on notifications and sharing with others. This has been one of my biggest videos to date, and I appreciate the support.